The year was 2142, and the silence of the Kuiper Belt was not a peaceful one. It was heavy, pressurized by the sheer weight of the vacuum. Commander Elias Thorne stood on the bridge of the U.S. Pathfinder, his boots magnetically locked to the deck. Outside the reinforced view screen, the moon Sharon loomed like a jagged tooth of ice and dark rock. Below, the mining colony New Hope was a sprawling network of pressurized domes and humming excavation drills. Captain, we're picking up a gravitational distortion at 040 Mark 12, Lieutenant Kalin reported, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface that flickered with orange light. It's not a comet. It's too rhythmic. Elias narrowed his eyes. Human history had been a series of small steps, but the Ethelgard drive had turned those steps into leaps. For decades, they had been alone. Is it the Belt Rebels? No, sir, Kalen's voice dropped. The signature is crystalline. It's refracting our scans rather than absorbing them. And Captain, it's huge. From the shadow of Sharon, a ship emerged. It did not look like a ship. It looked like a shard of a dying star, 5 kilometers of translucent, obsidian-like geometry that pulsed with a cold, violet radiance. This was the Valkyrie hegemony. Open a channel on all frequencies, Elias commanded. Standard greeting. We are the United Earth Government. We come in peace for all mankind. The response was not words. It was a surge of energy that bypassed the Pathfinder's shields as if they were made of paper. The bridge lights turned blood red. They're hacking our core, Kalin screamed. Manual override. Cut the hard lines. Elias shouted, but it was too late. On the main screen, a face appeared. Not of flesh, but of shifting light and geometric planes. You are parasites, a voice resonated, vibrating the very marrow of Elias's bones. You defile the silent reach with your noise. This moon is a repository of the great equilibrium. Your presence is a corruption. It will be purged. Wait, Elias stepped forward. We didn't know. We can talk about this. The Valkyrie ship didn't talk. It fired. A beam of focused light struck the mining colony below. In an instant, the domes shattered. 3,000 lives were extinguished as the atmosphere boiled away into the void. Captain, the colony it's gone, Kalin whispered, her face pale. Elias felt a cold, sharp rage crystallize in his chest. Lock all railguns. Target their primary emitter. If they want to purge us, they're going to find out that humans don't go quietly into the night. Kalin, bypass the safety protocols on the Ethelgard drive. We're going to jump, not away, but through their shield frequency. That's suicide, sir. No, Elias gripped the command chair. That's humanity. Fire. The Pathfinder lurched as the railguns spat slugs of tungsten at a fraction of the speed of light. The Valkyrie shard flickered, surprised by the primitive ferocity. It was the first shot of a war we weren't ready for, but it was the shot that proved we belonged in the dark. The Citadel was a marvel of engineering that made Earth's greatest cities look like mud huts. It was a station built around a trapped singularity, a ring of light and metal that housed the Galactic Council. Ambassador Elena Vance felt very small as her hoverpod drifted toward the center of the high chamber. Around her sat the sovereigns, the SYZYGY, ethereal beings of pure gas, the Xylos, towering insectoid librarians, and the Valkyrie, who looked at her with the cold indifference of a glacier. Ambassador Vance of the Human Collective, the archprelate of the Xylos clicked, his mandibles vibrating. You stand before this council to answer for the destruction of a Valkyrie scout vessel, a tragedy of your own making. Elena adjusted her suit. She was a career diplomat, but she knew that in this room, words were less important than the steel in one's voice. The Valkyrie murdered 3,000 miners without warning. We didn't destroy their ship, we defended our home. If the great equilibrium means watching our people die in silence, then your equilibrium is a lie. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The archprelate leaned forward. You are a short-lived species. Your history is a record of genocide, planetary pollution, and chaos. You have been in the stars for less than 2 centuries. Why should the council grant you a seat? Why should we not simply quarantine your system until you eventually extinguish yourselves? Because you need us, Elena said, her voice echoing. She signaled her aide, and a massive holographic map filled the chamber. It showed the council's borders, and the encroaching dead zones of the Perseus Arm. You have stagnated. You follow laws written by ancestors who have been dust for 1 million years. You are afraid of risk. Humans, we live for it. Arrogance, the Valkyrie sovereign hummed. You are but a spark in the dark. A spark can start a fire, Elena countered. We have reverse-engineered your gravity tech in 10 years. We have colonized worlds you deemed uninhabitable, because we don't mind getting our hands dirty. You call us short-lived? Fine. That just means we don't have time to waste on your bureaucracy. Give us a seat, and we will be your shield. Deny us, and we will be the thorn in your side that you cannot remove. The sovereigns went silent. They communicated through subspace data bursts, a conversation Elena couldn't hear. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the archprelate spoke. The council is divided. However, your species possesses a uniquely violent adaptability that may serve the equilibrium in the coming cycles. You are granted provisional status. You will have no vote, but you will have a voice. Use it wisely, Ambassador. The galaxy is far older and more dangerous than you can imagine. Elena nodded, hiding the tremor in her hands. We'll make sure you don't forget we're here. The hoverpod began its slow, silent retreat from the central dais, gliding through the cavernous gloom of the high chamber. As the pod moved further away, the glowing eyes of the Valkyrie sovereign remained fixed on Elena, 2 points of frigid light in the vast, vaulted dark. The scale of the room was dizzying. The ceiling was lost in a haze of artificial atmosphere, where tiny maintenance drones drifted like dust motes. To the sovereigns, she was a momentary distraction in a schedule that spanned centuries. To her, this was the pivot point of human history. The pod docked with a soft hiss at the outer rim of the chamber. Elena stepped out onto the polished obsidian floor, her boots clicking with a rhythm that felt far too loud in the oppressive silence. Waiting for her was Elias, her chief of staff, and a small security detail of 4 Marines. They looked out of place here, their carbon fiber armor and kinetic rifles appearing primitive against the Citadel's fluid metal architecture. Tell me we're not getting evicted, Elias whispered, falling into step beside her. We're staying, Elena said, her voice low and tight. Provisional status. We're the council's new janitors and bodyguards, apparently. They've given us the voice, but they've kept the keys. It's a start, Elias noted, though his eyes darted toward a group of SYZYGY drifting nearby. The gas beings were contained in translucent silk-like membranes, pulsing with rhythmic bioluminescence as they whispered to one another through radio frequency shifts. They didn't even look at the humans. To them, the conversation was likely happening at a speed Elena's brain couldn't process. They made their way toward the human delegation wing, a sector of the Citadel that had been hastily retrofitted from an old environmental processing hub. It was far from the opulent gardens of the Xylos or the crystalline spires of the Valkyrie. The air here tasted faintly of ozone and recycled water, a familiar, industrial scent that grounded Elena. As they entered the main briefing room, the wall-to-wall screens flickered to life. Tactical displays showed the SSV Stalingrad and its support fleet holding position just outside the Citadel's exclusion zone. The Valkyrie scout ship they had destroyed was a jagged wreck on the sensors, a reminder of the cost of their entry into galactic politics. The Sovereigns are terrified, Elias, Elena said, stopping before a massive viewport that looked into the heart of the station. Far below, the Singularity, the heart of the Citadel, shimmered within its containment rings. It was a terrifying beauty, a a captured star that provided near-infinite energy to a station the size of a small moon. They've lived in safety for so long they've forgotten what it's like to fight for an inch of ground. They look at our history and see madness. They don't realize that our madness is the only thing that kept us alive on a planet that tried to kill us for 1,000,000 years. The Xylos won't forget the Dead Zone's comment, Elias warned, tapping a tablet. They consider the Perseus Arm their private library. By pointing out that it's being eaten by the void, you essentially told them their archives are burning. They needed to hear it, Elena countered. She walked over to a console and pulled up the footage of the Valkyrie attack on the mining colony. The images were haunting, elegant, needle-like ships firing beams of pure light that turned reinforced titanium into vapor. The miners never stood a chance. They call us uniquely violent because we hit back. Because when they tried to erase a colony of short-lived apes, those apes sent a kinetic slug through their bridge at 0.2% of light speed. She turned away from the screen, her expression darkening. The Valkyrie aren't going to stop. This provisional status is just a way for the Council to keep us close enough to watch. They want to see if we'll break under the pressure of the galaxy, or if we'll turn into the monsters they think we are. A chime echoed through the room. A holographic message appeared in the center of the air, a formal summons from the Xylos Archprelate. It was a data packet containing the coordinates for a sector in the Perseus Arm, along with a list of irregularities. They're wasting no time, Elias murmured. They want us to investigate the Fringe, a suicide mission to prove our worth, or a way to get us out of their hair, Elena said. She looked at the coordinates. It was a region of space deemed corrupted by the Council's ancient sensors. They want the shield to go and stand in the dark. Fine, we'll go, but we aren't going as their servants. We're going as the vanguard. She walked to the window again. Outside, the Citadel was a hive of activity. Thousands of species, millions of years of culture, all held together by a fragile set of rules that were starting to fray at the edges. Humanity was the chaos factor, the jagged edge that didn't fit into the smooth machinery of the equilibrium. Prepare the Stalingrad, Elena ordered. I want a full diplomatic and scientific team ready to move within the hour. If the Council wants to see what a spark can do, we're going to give them a goddamn supernova. She thought back to the High Chamber, to the cold indifference of the Valkyrie and the clicking judgment of the Xylos. They had underestimated the hunger of a species that knew its time was limited. They saw brevity as a weakness, never realizing that the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. But it illuminates so much more of the dark. Ambassador, Elias said, hesitating at the door. Do you think we can actually do it? Hold the line against whatever is in those dead zones. Elena didn't turn around. She watched the light of the singularity reflect in the glass, a tiny human silhouette imposed over the greatest engine in the galaxy. We don't have a choice, Elias. We've spent our whole history fighting each other over patches of dirt. Now we have the whole sky, and something is trying to take it away. We'll hold the line. And if we can't, we'll make sure the fire we leave behind is bright enough to be seen from every corner of this citadel. She straightened her suit, the tremor in her hands finally gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stillness. The galaxy was old, yes. It was dangerous, certainly, but it had never met anything like the human collective. We'll make sure they don't forget we're here. Hope you liked it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell.